So there's a theory going around right now that completely changes how you see this show, and I haven't been able to get it out of my head since episode 8 came out. What if nobody in the digital circus is a real person? What if they're all copies of people who either don't know a version of them is stuck in a computer, or worse, people who are already dead and have been gone for years? Episode 8 dropped some interesting clues, and this TikTok from this account inspired this theory. So go check them out. So let's get into it. So let's start with something Kane says in episode 8 that most people missed completely. When Ragatha shows up in the circus for the first time during the flashback, Kane doesn't say, "a new human." He says, "a new mind."
Is this really?
I was hoping new minds could show up!
He explains how their avatars were designed to match their mind files, which are scans of their subconscious. We can also see a folder in the system called CA_neural scans, marked as obsolete. Now think about what CNA actually was. Kinger told us in episode 8 that CNA wasn't a gaming company. They were building creative AI systems. And the technology they built doesn't just connect you to a virtual world like a headset in a video game. It scans your brain. It reads your thoughts and your memories and your personality and turns all of that into a file, a mind file. And then that file runs inside the circus as a digital copy of who you were. So the Pomni walking around in the circus might not be the real Pomni. She could be a copy, a digital version of a 25-year-old accountant who put on a headset one day and had her brain scanned without realizing what was happening. The real Pomni could still be out there in the real world, living her life, with no idea that a version of her is trapped in a computer, having the worst experience of her life. And there's a detail from the very first episode that supports this. The last shot of the pilot shows the computer desk where Pomni put on the headset, and the headset is placed neatly on the desk, not on her head, not on the floor like she got pulled in, just sitting there like someone took it off and left. If Pomni had been pulled into the circus body and soul, the headset would still be on her. But it's not. It's on the desk, because the headset did its job. It scanned her brain, created a copy, and the real Pomni took it off and walked away. The version in the circus is the copy. That's the digital copy theory, but we can take it further. Now, if the circus is just running copies of people's brains on a server, that changes why the circus exists in the first place. Kinger told us that Scratch was the smartest person on the CNA team, and that he had a brain tumor. A man with a brain tumor working at a company that builds brain scanning tech? That's not a coincidence. Scratch knew he was dying. His brain was going to fail, and there was nothing anyone could do about it. So he built a system that could take a full copy of his mind and run it in a digital space where it would keep going after his body gave out. The digital circus was never meant to be a game or for entertainment. It was a life support system for Scratch's mind, a place where his consciousness could keep going even after the tumor killed his body. He built his own afterlife, but he likely didn't expect his coworkers to get pulled in with him. Kinger says he roped Queenie into this, and 7 CNA employees ended up in the circus on the same day. They were likely testing the brain scanning tech, put on the headsets as part of a trial, and the system copied them all. And once the copy was inside, Kane kept it there. So the circus is filled with copies of people who might still be alive outside, or copies of people whose bodies died years ago. In this frame, Pomni gets struck by lightning, and you can see she has no organs, just a brain, which really reinforces the theory. So if they're all copies of people who are already dead, then the torture scenes in episode 8 take on a completely different meaning. Kane said he built their avatars from their mind files, from scans of their brain, and the nightmares he gave each character in episode 8 came straight from those files. He took the worst things stored in their subconscious and played it back at them. But what if those aren't fears? What if those are memories? The last thing that happened to them before the scan was made. Let's go through them. Scratch is the easiest one. He had a brain tumor. Kinger told us that in the cafe scene. Scratch knew he was dying, so he built the circus as a place where his mind could keep going after his body failed. His tumor killed him, and his copy became the first one in the system. He didn't need an accident. His body was already shutting down when the scan happened. Now Pomni. We know from episode 5 that she was a 25-year-old accountant who spent her free time exploring abandoned buildings and recording videos of herself doing it. That's how she found the headset, in some abandoned CNA office somewhere. Her nightmare in episode 8 shows her getting attacked by realistic crocodiles, which are basically animals hunting her down in the dark. What if Pomni in real life got attacked by guard dogs or some kind of animal while exploring an abandoned building? She went into a place she wasn't supposed to be in, something was guarding it, and it killed her. Episode 7 shows us quick images of Jax driving through a suburban area at night before something goes wrong. And when Zubul asks him in episode 7 if he has anyone waiting for him in the real world, he doesn't really answer. What if Jax died in a car crash? A young guy driving at night, lost control, and that was it. The flashes in episode 7 aren't memories of his past, and his nightmare in episode 8, where his friends peel his skin off, could be what happened to his body in the crash. Her nightmare puts her inside a spinning animation device with her emotions cycling faster and faster until she gets hit by a truck. This is the second time in the show she gets hit by a vehicle, and Jax's story involves a car accident. Two characters in the same cast who both have trauma linked to vehicles. What if Gangle was in the same accident as Jax, maybe walking home from her fast food job at night? Either way, the truck in her nightmare is what killed her. This one is hard to sit through. She grew up on a ranch, far from everything, with an abusive mother and no one else around. Episode 5 talks about the yelling, the guilt, and the isolation. Then, episode 8 shows what her mother did. A silhouette at a dinner table throwing knives, and one of them goes straight into Ragatha's button eye. Kane built her avatar from her brain scan, and that scan turned her into a ragdoll. A ragdoll is something you can throw around and hit, and it just sits there and takes it. That's how she saw herself, so she might have died because of her mother's abuse. Their nightmare has them dragged under by random toy parts while staring at themselves in mirrors. Out of all the nightmares, this one is the hardest to connect to a specific cause of death, and their avatar being a toy made of mismatched parts that they constantly swap out suggests exactly that. Then whatever happened to them in the real world was connected to their body in some way. So if they're all copies made from a single brain scan, that means their entire existence is based on one snapshot, one moment in time. The headset scanned their brain, captured everything, their memories, their personality, their fears, and turned it into a file. But that file was made once, and never updated. In the real world, your brain changes every single day. You make new memories, you grow, but a copy running on a server doesn't get any of that. It's stuck with the data it was given at the moment of the scan, and nothing else. So over time, that data starts wearing out. That's what's happening to the copies in the Circus. The copy starts glitching, and at some point, the data degrades so much that the whole file collapses, and you get a glitchy black monster covered in broken pixels that can't talk or think anymore. Scratch went first because his scan was already corrupted when it was made. The tumor was in his brain at the moment of the scan, so the copy started with damaged data from day one. The others lasted longer because their scans were clean, but even a clean file can't run forever without maintenance. One by one, each copy hit the point where the data couldn't hold together anymore, and they broke down. And there's the other possibility. Maybe the data doesn't just degrade on its own. Maybe the trigger is when a copy gets too close to the truth. Gooseworks said that the process comes from a loss of identity, and the biggest loss of identity you can have is realizing you're not real. Kaufmo spent all his time trying to find the exit. What if he found something? A piece of code that told him there's no body on the other side. The second he understood that he was a copy with nowhere to go, his sense of self collapsed and his file broke. And then there's the issue with food. The Circus follows a timeline that lines up with reality. Kane appears in 1996. Kinger shows up in 1999. Ragatha arrives in 2008. Pomni in 2017. Those are actual years passing between each entry. But if their real bodies still exist somewhere, those bodies have needs. They have to eat and drink. Kinger has been inside since 1999. That makes 18 years when the story happens. No one lasts 18 years without food or water, so it's impossible for them to be alive. And who has been looking after their bodies for 9 years? Where are all these people kept? Are they all inside the same abandoned CNA building, strapped to headsets that no one ever noticed? Because a place like that would have been found eventually. There are holes in this theory, but Kane grabbed those nightmare scenes straight out of their brain scans, and every single one of them looks like a way to die. Pomni getting torn apart by animals in a place she wasn't supposed to be, Jax driving at night and something going wrong, Gangle getting slammed by a truck, Ragatha's mother going at her with knives when she was a kid on that ranch, Scratch slowly losing his mind to a tumor. Those look like final moments. And until episode 9 comes out, that's the part of this theory I can't shake. So during Kane's song in episode 8, there's a moment where he flips cards in front of every character. And if you look closely at the symbols, Jax's card has a star on it and Kinger's card has a moon. Now if you go back at the door to Kane's office, the red door is the star and the blue door is the moon. Red and blue. The exact same colors as the two buttons in episode 7. Red meant staying in the circus, and blue meant leaving. So if we take this approach and treat it as a hint, or a small clue for the grand finale, it could lead to a really interesting theory I'm going to break down in this video. And I think those cards actually predict everything that happens in episode 9. Because in this theory, Jax becomes the villain of the finale, and after everything we saw in that trailer, this might actually be true. The trailer picks up exactly where episode 8 left off. The circus is destroyed. Kinger just told everyone he accidentally killed Kane. Pomni asks,
Are you sure?
and then Jax realizes,
Now we have nothing.
I don't know what's gonna happen.
Jax sounds like he's about to lose it. He's been in the circus for years. He lost Ribbit to abstraction. He lost Kaufmo to abstraction. And he survived all of that by telling himself none of it was real. The circus is a cartoon, and his friends are characters. That was the only thing keeping him going. Then in episode 8, Kinger becomes lucid and tells everyone that everything is real. The people are real, and nothing about any of this is fake. And then the same Kinger who built Kane with his own hands, the guy who is the reason they're all trapped here, accidentally deletes the one thing that was running this place. And now they're stuck forever, with nothing and no one in charge. When Jax says,
Now we have nothing.
I hear a guy who's about to break. In the trailer, there's a shot of him and Kinger facing each other, and Jax doesn't have his usual sarcastic face on. He looks way more intense than we've ever seen him. I'm almost certain the first chunk of episode 9 is Jax going at Kinger for everything he did. In episode 8, Kinger told the cast that players have the same abilities as Kane. They can conjure stuff and change the circus. It just takes focus. Kinger could create butterflies without concentrating at all, because his brain was in a different state. His insanity basically removed the barrier that normally makes it hard for humans to use those abilities. Kinger accessed those powers through insanity, and he got healing butterflies because Kinger is gentle even when he's lost his mind. Jax is reaching that same threshold, but through pure rage. And if rage is what unlocks his version of those abilities, then whatever comes out of Jax is going to be the opposite of healing butterflies. He fills the empty seat that Kane left because the circus lost its master, and Jax is the most unstable person in the room, and he stumbles into the powers before anybody else does. The episode 9 trailer thumbnail shows red and blue lights along the side of Jax's head. He's stepping into Kane's role. Jax and Kane have been mirrors of each other since the pilot. Gooseworks said she based both of them on her own flaws. They're both the most antagonistic people in the show. They both perform this version of themselves. Kane keeps pretending everything is fun because he can't handle being abandoned. And Jax keeps pretending he doesn't care about anyone because he can't handle losing someone again. In episode 6, Jax tells Pomni that everyone in the circus is basically a plaything and gets genuinely upset when she calls his archetype the villain instead of the funny one. Michael Kovac said in an interview that Jax wishes he was a villain and that he's misunderstood and doesn't even know it. If episode 9 is where Jax finally gets to play the villain for real, and then figures out too late that the role doesn't fit him the way he imagined, then everything Kovac said lands perfectly. And that whole plaything speech from episode 6 takes on a completely different meaning if Jax actually takes over the circus and starts running things the way Kane did. TADC is built on I have no mouth and I must scream. And the show keeps inverting stuff from the book. Ted in the book is the youngest, the cynical one, the one who acts like he doesn't care to hide how terrified he is, which is Jax down to every detail. In the book, Ted saves everyone at the end, but TADC flips things from the source material constantly, so I could easily see the show having Jax become the problem first and the solution second, the person everyone needs saving from before he becomes the person who saves them. During his episode 7 breakdown, there are flashing images of cars, and a ton of people online are saying that means Jax was in a car accident before the circus. Some go further and say his body is so damaged that the headset is the only thing keeping his mind alive. Like he got plugged in while he was dying, and leaving the circus would just mean his brain shuts off for good. But I actually think there's 2 separate reasons why Jax would try to keep everyone trapped, and they both work on their own. The first one is purely mental. Jax lost Ribbit to abstraction, he lost Kaufmo to abstraction. Those were his only 2 real friends in the circus, and they both disappeared on him. Every single person he let himself get close to ended up gone. So Jax built this whole armor around himself, where he acts like he doesn't care about anybody, because if you don't care, then it doesn't hurt when they leave. But we saw in episode 6 that the armor is cracking. We saw in episode 7 that he almost abstracted over it. And we saw in episode 8 that learning everything is real nearly finished him off. If the rest of the cast finds an exit and decides to leave, from Jax's perspective, that's just Ribbit and Kaufmo happening again, but with everyone at once. He already knows what it feels like to be the one left behind, and he would do anything to not go through that a third time. So even without any car accident theory or deathbed theory, Jax has a reason to block the exit purely based on the fact that he's a guy who has been abandoned over and over and can't take it anymore. The second reason goes deeper. If those flashing car images mean he was in a car accident and his real body is already destroyed, then if he gets out of the circus, he just straight up dies. He pressed the red button in episode 7 because staying was the only option that made sense to him if his body is gone on the outside. Now that Kane is gone and Jax figured out about the powers, then he actually has the ability to make that choice for everyone else too. And there's a third theory to this that people don't talk about enough. Jax clearly doesn't want anyone to know who he really is on the outside. His whole personality in the circus is built on being this loud, confident guy who doesn't take anything seriously. And if they leave and go back to the real world, that mask comes off completely. There's even a theory that Jax is actually a girl in real life, based on the fact that Gooseworks is trans femme and said Jax is the character she relates to the most. And the show keeps putting him in dresses and making jokes about his masculinity. And in an early version of the show, the character that became Jax was literally female. If any of that is true, then the circus is the one place where Jax gets to be exactly who he wants to be without anyone questioning it. And leaving means going back to a version of himself that he ran away from. That's one more reason to stand in front of that door and refuse to move. All three reasons point to the same thing. Jax blocking the exit because the outside world has nothing left for him.
What's the rush? You got someone waiting for you outside?
Don't you?
Yeah.
On the poster, every character is walking around inside giant Jax heads. I'm reading that as something that actually happens in the episode. The cast finds a way into Jax's mind to understand why he turned on them. All the flashback shots in the trailer that still have color would be his memories from when things were still okay. The hot chocolate mug on the poster is from the snow adventure he did with Ribbit and Kaufmo. The exit writing on the wall is Kaufmo's room from episode 1. The green hands are Ribbit's, same ones he hallucinated in episode 7. The trailer scene where Ribbit says, "Have you ever done something that you regret?" feels like something happening inside Jax's head. A projection of Ribbit from his memories, trying to pull him back before he goes too far. For people who watched Attack on Titan, I see this episode like the moment when Eren was inside his father's memories. I think it will be something similar. And they might finally understand why Jax is like that, and maybe even reach out to him. I think every colorful scene in the trailer is either part of Jax's memories or a space they've built with the abilities they have. In I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream, Ted spends the entire story being the worst person in the group, and then at the very end, he's the one who kills the others to free them from AM's torture. And AM punishes him by turning him into a shapeless blob that can't move, or speak, or die for the rest of eternity. Gooseworks described the ending of the show as a food, saying, "one microwaved peep," which looks a lot like the shapeless blob Ted gets turned into. 2 keyholes on the poster, one pointing at the sky and one pointing at a bright light. The synopsis says, will they come to terms with what they uncover, or will they make the other choice? The YouTube release is June 19th, which happens to be the exact date in I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream when AM destroys humanity and Ted ends up trapped inside the machine forever so that the rest of them don't have to be. Kane already laid it out on the cards during his song before anyone realized. And everything points toward an episode where Jax takes Kane's place and the cast ends up inside his memories to understand how it all started. King or the Moon walks the cast toward the exit. Jax the star stays behind holding the circus together so the door doesn't close on everyone else. In episode 6, Ragatha points at Jax and tells him, "I know exactly what you're doing with Pomni, and it'll never work."
Getting close with Pomni to corrupt her.
She's not talking about hurting someone, she said corrupt. And later in that same episode, when Pomni tells Jax that the way he treats people might be the reason they abstract, he explodes and screams,
Oh my god! You didn't even know him! You don't even know what people are like before they abstract! You...
And in episode 8, we learn that every player in the circus has the same powers as Kane. If Jax had access to those powers without knowing it, he might have caused the abstraction of his 2 best friends, without ever understanding what he did. Let's go through all the evidence for this theory.
This is real.
Kaufmo was one of Jax's closest friends in the circus, along with Ribbit. And in the photo we see in Jax's room in episode 7, the 3 of them are posing together, making smug faces and holding drinks, and doing bunny ears behind each other's heads. Jax called Kaufmo Coffee, and he even lent him his bowling ball. In the pilot, when Jax, Ragatha, and Pomni open Kaufmo's door and find him abstracted, Jax stares at him for a second and just leaves Ragatha and Pomni alone. After Kaufmo gets sent to the cellar, Ragatha organizes a funeral, and every single member of the circus shows up, except Jax, who is the only one missing. He leaves right before the funeral, and you can see he looks sad. In episode 6, there's a moment where Jax looks at the performer's doors. And when he looks at Kaufmo's crossed out door, he has this angry look on his face. And then when he gets to Ribbit's door, he looks blank. Every time Jax's pupils get larger, it's when he tries to dissociate from the circus. And every time his pupils shrink, it's when he starts to panic or break down. Ever since Kaufmo abstracted in the pilot, Jax has been getting worse in every single episode. Like, he went from being sarcastic and kind of entertaining at the beginning of the pilot to being genuinely cruel and angry as time goes on. Kaufmo had paintings all over his room before he abstracted, and one of them shows him staring at an abstracted figure with the word "Y" written next to it. And the theory is that Kaufmo watched Ribbit abstract before him and painted what he saw. Ribbit was Jax's best friend, and the first real hint we got about their connection was in the intermission scene in episode 5, where Jax is running through the circus hallways and stops in front of Ribbit's crossed out door. In episode 7, we see the photo in Jax's bedroom of him, Ribbit, and Kaufmo together. That picture is the only piece of evidence in the entire show that Jax used to be a completely different person before he lost his friends. Jax and Ribbit were best friends. Ribbit started going downhill mentally, the way everyone in the circus eventually does. The other members of the cast pulled away from her, because being around someone who is about to abstract is draining and unpleasant. But Jax stayed longer than anyone else, because that's what best friends do. The others basically handed Ribbit's care over to Jax, since they were so close and figured it would be fine as long as Jax was there. But dealing with Ribbit's deterioration wore Jax down too, and at some point, he started pulling back as well. Their relationship deteriorated as they started to fight more and more often. And one day, Jax told Ribbit he didn't care about her at all, that they were never friends.
Hey, you alright?
And this was the turning point. It was the last time he saw Ribbit before she died. After Ribbit's death, things started to snowball with Kaufmo, and Jax lost his two best friends in such a short time. And now, in the episode 9 trailer, Ribbit appears and says to Jax, "Have you ever done something that you regret?" And that question has been sitting on Jax's shoulders since before the pilot even started. But as the episode goes on, we start to realize that there might be more to this tragic story than just best friends who argue. Now I will talk about every hint we've had that Jax might have killed his own friends, and why it's important for the finale. Ragatha uses the word corrupt and says, "It'll never work," like she's watched this exact situation play out before with someone else and already knows where it ends. Ragatha saw what happened to both of them, so when she tells Jax that he's corrupting Pomni, she's not throwing out a random accusation. In episode 8, Kinger tells the cast that every player in the circus has the same conjuring abilities as Kane. They just need to focus hard enough to use them.
But so do we. We all technically have the ability to conjure, just like Kane requires a lot more skill and concentration for us.
Butterfly.
But there's a moment at the end of episode 7 that connects to this and changes what it means. Kinger, Jax, and Kane are talking, and Kinger brings up Scratch, who was the first person to ever abstract in the circus. And Kinger implies that Kane caused Scratch's abstraction by messing with his mind, and Kane gets visibly nervous when the subject comes up. That moment tells you that abstraction can be triggered by someone else. It doesn't always come from the person breaking down on their own. An outside force can push someone into it, and Kane manipulates the minds of the humans all the time. He wipes their names, he made Jax temporarily vegan. If Kane can do all of that and the players have the same abilities, then a player could accidentally do something similar to another player without even knowing they had that kind of power in them. Jax has been the most emotionally unstable person in the group for a long time. What if his anger, or his grief, or his frustration activated something? He could have pushed Kaufmo or Ribbit past the point where they could come back. And at the end of episode 6, right after his massive fight with Pomni, Jax rushes to the bathroom alone and has a panic attack by the sink. He just had this blowout with the only new friend he's made since Ribbit and Kaufmo disappeared, and he's terrified he just started the same cycle with Pomni that he thinks he started with Ribbit. And then in episode 8, right after Kinger explains the truth about CNA and the creation of the circus, Jax walks out of the room, goes to the staircase, grabs the railing, and gets another panic attack. He says,
Oh my god, this is real.
He had come to the realization that everything he believed in, that the circus was just a cartoon and they are cartoon characters, was wrong. The circus is real, and all along he had been harming real people. Think about what that means for someone who might have accidentally caused the abstraction of his two best friends. When Pomni says that the way people are treated might be what causes abstraction, Jax screams,
Are you seriously gonna blame me for something that everybody else did too? You didn't even know him! You don't even know what people are like before they abstract! They are not pleasant to be around. Like at all!
He leans hard on the word not when he says people become very unpleasant before they abstract. Like he's trying to talk himself into believing that it was Ribbit's fault for being difficult and not his fault for whatever he did. And right before that scene, Pomni called his archetype the villain, and Jack scoffs at it and says he's the funny one. And the reason he reacted so hard is because she accidentally described exactly what he's afraid of being. And in that same episode, after they win the competition together, Pomni tries to hug Jax and he pushes her. You can see he looks scared at first, then stares at his own hand, like he's remembering another time where that hand did something. And Jax always seems to be remembering the past. He lives in it, and he feels so detached, like he's only thinking about his memories. In the cafe in episode 8, he looks at his hot cocoa for a while, and during that scene, we can see what looks like the shadow of Ribbit, like a flashback of when they shared that table together. In the episode 9 trailer, Ribbit says to Jax, "Have you ever done something that you regret?" And that question is about something specific between the two of them that the show has been building toward for 8 episodes. The poster shows every character walking through giant Jax heads. And if that means they actually go inside his mind in episode 9, then they see everything. The guilt and the memories he's been hiding behind his villain act since the day Ribbit disappeared. And if Jax now knows the powers exist, and his mental state keeps cracking, episode 9 could be where he figures out how to use them on purpose. He suffers from being abandoned by his best friends. Imagine how he would end up if he learns that he killed them all along. He would just go crazy. And everything I said connects to the theory of Jax taking over the circus in episode 9. He could end up taking Kane's empty seat and becoming the villain of the finale. Pomni called him the villain as a joke in episode 6, but I'm afraid it won't be a joke anymore in episode 9.
As time goes on, we just end up falling into our archetypes, become part of the machine.
What's your archetype then? Villain?